Good in your morning. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today we have an update on Congress's stimulus support.
Yeah, those first snowflakes of December fall on this Thursday morning. We'll find out how long it's going to linger from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And former Congressman and track and field legend Jim Ryan joins us on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It starts right now.
Thanks for joining us on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. The Joplin Health Department says 3 more people have died from COVID-19. The health department says 2 were residents at a long-term care facility. They were a 75-year-old man and a 59-year-old woman. The third was a 77-year-old man. The latest deaths bring the city's total to 65. The Jasper County Health Department is reporting 2 more deaths, bringing that county's total to 79. Patients there were a man in his 70s and a woman in her 50s. Well, some students at Pittsburgh State University get a much-needed financial boost as the university finishes distributions of CARES Act funding. In the summer, PSU applied for the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund that would send schools money to use for emergency grants for students who were displaced due to the pandemic. PSU received a total of more than $2.6 million for students. The funds were distributed in 3 phases. The first phase went to Pell Grant students who automatically qualified to receive the funds. The second and third phases were distributed to students who applied for the funds and were eligible. Full-time students received $800 and part-timers received $400. Leftover funds distributed amongst all eligible students.
We tried to unilaterally share the rest of the funds equally amongst all the students.
Distributions have been completed and around 2,500 students received the funding. Well, police say a chain of events led to a crash into this convenience store on South Main Street in Miami. An SUV hit a car. The car was pushed up and hit the store. Now, the wall did not collapse, but the building does have structural damage. No one was injured. The Otter Stop convenience store is still open for business. Good news for Michael. It's one of his favorite stops.
Yeah, I love the Otter Stop.
Governor Laura Kelly said Wednesday the state of Kansas expects to receive its first shipment of a COVID-19 vaccine in a few weeks. She said the vaccine will be distributed in 3 phases, and her plan is in line with recommendations from the CDC. According to Governor Kelly, Kansas is expected to receive 24,000 doses of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine in mid-December, and roughly another 49,000 from Moderna shortly after. In all, the state is expecting to have 150,000 doses by the end of December, with more coming in weekly after that. Southwest Missouri man will stand trial next year in the death of his wife, whose body was found inside a freezer last year. Authorities charged Larry Dinwiddie of Marshfield with second-degree murder, abandoning a corpse, and armed criminal action in the death of his wife, Cynthia. During a Webster County court hearing, Dinwiddie's trial was scheduled for November 2021. Investigators have said Cynthia Dinwiddie's body was found in November of 2019, locked in a freezer in an abandoned storage unit near Marshfield. Detectives believe her body had been there since 2015. Dinwiddie was arrested last year at the storage unit. According to a court affidavit, Dinwiddie admitted to killing his wife with a hammer during an argument. Well, the world of artificial intelligence has come to the TV news business. CNN affiliate MBN South Korea recently debuted the country's first AI news anchor. She looks real. AI is a replica of anchorwoman Kim Joo-ha and copies everything from her look and facial mannerisms to the sound of her voice. Michael, finally the solution we need to be everywhere in one place.
They're coming for us. Computers and robots, they're coming for us, folks.
But can she copy, like, the interaction we have with each other?
Looks pretty lifelike to me.
Yeah, but she doesn't seem very energetic.
Well, we don't know her personality. That just might be her.
Yeah, maybe they just picked a boring news anchor today.
Whoa! Whoa!
Yep, I said it. Because you don't get boring news here on KOAM.
Going after our
Sorry,
brethren
Kim.
on that one. Our
Sorry,
brothers
Kim.
and sisters there. Well, you just shots fired on
I
this
don't know what
Thursday.
she's saying. It's in Korean.
Why did you do?
I can't even read what she's saying.
She's talking about SUV sales right now. How about
Yes,
that?
she is. Or recalls, possibly. Who knows? We don't know. See, this is the chance where they could be interacting right there. Look at this. He's looking at her, trying to
Right.
talk to her, and she doesn't look back.
She's fake!
She's programmed to read the news. Mannerisms, yes, but she doesn't have the personality that can change and fluctuate.
There's nothing wrong with being programmed to read the news. There's nothing wrong with that.
I bet she wouldn't just break out in song or like quote lyrics from a song ever.
Here, Gus, bail me out of this. Just hand me scripts right now. Thank you, sir.
This
Okay.
is where, Michael, you just say,
Is
let it go.
See this right here, folks?
Let it go,
Programmed.
Tanya.
I am programmed to read what Gus
Let
Brunetti
it
writes
go.
for me.
You know,
my
behind the
man.
scenes,
I'm
Michael
getting out of this
ad-libs his
one.
weather,
I'm
so
moving
there's
on.
no programming
I'm
there.
going to the Skywatch storm tracker. Light snow coming down the eastern portion of southwest Missouri. We actually had an elongated band earlier. Us had some fat snowflakes come down, but the fact that our ground was above freezing, it just pretty much melted on contact. A little bit trying to creep in from the northwest. Rain remains from Kansas across the state line right there. It's coming down pretty good clip. Where you see the dark green right there. We've picked up anywhere from about an inch at Joplin Regional Airport, about 0.7 of an inch in Chanute, anywhere from about 1.5 inches down in Miami and Grove. Freeman Health System Sky Camera, key factor, 34 degrees. That's a real good sign. That's why everything was able to melt. No travel impacts. I've been checking the Department of Transportation pages, so you're not going to have to worry about the snow causing any problems out there. Slow down, though. I mean, roads are going to be wet and whatnot, so let's just treat it like some December showers. It's going to be a cold one today, low 40s, but then look at this. As we head into the weekend, sunshine all the way up into the 50s. Just got to let this rain dissipate, and it will later this morning. Tanya?
All right,
You don't
up
need me
next, the CDC shortens its quarantine guidelines. We'll explain.
You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be back after this.
The World Health Organization is updating its guidelines on face masks for areas where COVID-19 is spreading. The WHO says people 12 and older should wear masks both indoors and outdoors in situations where you can't maintain 3 feet of distance between others. Officials say even when masks are used properly, they're not enough on their own to prevent spreading the virus. People also need to sanitize their hands, physically distance, and avoid touching their face. CDC issues new guidance on coronavirus quarantine measures. Nationwide, more than 271,000 people have died from COVID-19. As states work to get the virus under control, doctors, particularly those in rural states, are struggling to provide care. Chris Martinez reports from Los Angeles.
As coronavirus cases set records across the country, the CDC is shortening its recommended 14-day quarantine period for those exposed to the virus.
Quarantine can end after 10 days without a COVID-19 test if the person has reported no symptoms, or after 7 days with a negative test result if the person has reported no symptoms.
On Tuesday, the U.S. reported the second highest single-day death toll since the pandemic began. Nearly 2,600 people lost their lives.
There's only so many 12-hour shifts you can do in a week.
It's taking an emotional toll on frontline healthcare workers like Dr. Scott Samlin, an emergency room doctor in Indiana, which has the second highest COVID hospitalization rate in the country.
Every day it's the same. COVID patients, people sick, people on ventilators, people dying.
This hospital in upstate New York is preparing beds and equipment for an anticipated surge during the holidays.
December and January and February are going to be rough times.
Here in California, the state reported a record number of new cases and hospitalizations Tuesday, with more than 7,500 new cases in Los Angeles County alone.
If these trends continue, we're going to have to take much more dramatic arguably drastic action.
On Tuesday, a CDC panel recommended healthcare workers and nursing home residents be the first to be vaccinated against the coronavirus.
Ultimately, there will be enough vaccine for everybody in the United States that wants to get a vaccine to get a vaccine.
As the UK prepares to roll out its vaccine next week, Trump administration officials say the first shipments of Pfizer's vaccine will be delivered to the U.S. by mid-December. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer say they are now in favor of a bipartisan $908 billion coronavirus stimulus plan. The move is a massive concession from Pelosi, who had held out on a multi-trillion-dollar deal for months. Well, doctors should test for COVID-19 in children who present symptoms of heart failure. The American College of Cardiology reports a 2-month-old who appeared to be choking and with bluish discoloration after eating later tested positive for the coronavirus. After receiving treatment, the infant recovered with normal heart function. Send it over to Michael for a look at your forecast.
You're just about done with that snow on the eastern edge of southwest Missouri. It's reverted back to rain, that band right there, and our ground temperature's too warm for anything to stick. Do see a little bit coming down there on our northwestern counties of southeast Kansas, and it's going to be a while before we actually clear out here. Rain's going to linger a little bit. Did get a storm report there in Webster County, just on the other side of Springfield. They got about half an inch of snow. Our ground temperatures just didn't support anything like that, luckily. No travel concerns on this Thursday morning. Some impressive rain totals down in Grove and near Miami right there, about an inch to inch and a half. We're approaching the inch mark there in Joplin, and Chanute sitting at about anywhere from half to about 3/4 of an inch. Actually, some much needed rain. We're not too bad at all. The fact that we didn't have to worry about the snow, causing any slick spots on the road or anything. Still a slow down out there. Treat it just like some rain showers as you would. 34 degrees in the Freeman Health System sky camera. Very positive in nature that we were able to stay above 32 all night long into the morning hours. Still going to throw that rain though up on the bus stop forecast for everybody, as the cloud cover is going to stick around. The wind's not too bad though, not causing any part of a wind chill or anything like that. Now we're starting to see that system gradually move toward the Mississippi, kind of clear out for us. It's still going to be a chilly one today though, as we're only going to be in the low 40s, even as the cloud cover clears off there for the nighttime hours. Still kind of holding on by the time we move into Friday. But as everything dives off, look at this 7-day forecast. We're talking about gorgeous, gorgeous weather headed into the weekend. Get up into the 50s, very seasonable for this time of year, and a whole bunch of sunshine. And we're even throwing up 60s by the middle of next week. Be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. All right, as this 2020 couldn't get any more bizarre, KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning is the poll. We got monoliths now popping up. This one turned up in California. You may remember like a week ago, there was one in Utah, and then it just disappeared. And then one showed up in Romania, and now there's another one just popped up in Utah. We're just having fun with it. Ask you if you know where they're coming from. Glenn Ritchie says he agrees with Kenny and Travis, a well-funded publicity stunt. And that means somebody's got too much money and too much time on their hands. Rocky Cunningham says, finally, a topic with meaningful and lasting impact on our lives. I'd love to hear Biden's take on this. Come on, man, you know the thing. Merle Bass says maybe it's a Dominion voter machine for aliens. Rob Getz says, I would seriously look at Chemly Manufacturing in Galena. I know people. Rob's going to make a call. Going to call Scott Dunlap. Oh, Rob, they got lasers at Chemly. I know that. They got cool lasers, too. KOAM News Now Insta poll this morning. 58% of you saying, it's a publicity stunt. I do appreciate the 26 are chiming in saying aliens. You can vote. Go to KOAMNewsNow.com/vote. Now, over to our own Jesse Irwin.
Michael, I like the idea of a monolith showing up at PNC Park, because then maybe the Pirates could get some home runs kept from being hit against them. All right, that's a low blow to my own team. Regardless, the COVID-19 pandemic is changing the way that many of us work and play. So with that in mind, a local company is shifting gears a little bit to fill a new need. Check it out.
Production has slowed at the Star Exhibit's warehouse over the last 9 months as COVID-19 canceled the majority of the company's corporate events, a large source of revenue.
We saw a lot of our face-to-face marketing business disappear. we realized we had to find something to keep our crew busy.
CEO Mark Johnson is used to pivoting. This summer, his marketing and design company helped create a Cub Foods tent on Lake Street after the original store was damaged in the riots. This time, they wanted to keep up with the times and what could be the future.
This trend of working from home was already started, and this pandemic was just going to exploit that.
The team used their construction and design capabilities to create a new company. My Backyard Studio was born. This model is a home office that would go just outside your home.
There's people that actually need to do their business outside of the home, but even if you can do it inside, there is that personal value of having a break between that and having a special space, your sanctuary.
There are several designs and sizes to choose from, or a studio can also be customized. There's even a gym option and a classroom for students looking for their own space to learn. Just don't call them a shed, Johnson says. They're insulated, can be built with heating, AC, and electrical.
It's a sanctuary. It's a place that you can go, and it's a studio.
Well, I mean, yesterday we were talking with Jasmine Kyle from the SEK Humane Society, and there's a video on my Facebook of it, but we had a studio audience. So check that out on our Facebook. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 after this. Well, on Monday this week, the Joplin City Council held a strategic planning session. During that session, they developed a list of goals they'd like to achieve. KOAM's Chris Warner has more on one of those goals.
The goal we're focusing on is improving community appearance, which includes public areas maintained by the city, like the parks.
As you drive by our parks, we tend to see trash in the stream bed, to maybe the parks not as maintained as we would like them to be. And so it's exploring all those different ways that we can improve the part of the community that we're responsible for.
Mayor Ryan Stanley says it's more about maintenance.
It's mainly us just maintaining and taking good care of the public infrastructure, our parks, the things that already exist, to make sure that they are well cared for and worthy of the city.
And the city will be looking at how to beef up maintenance across the community, which could include help from the public, as well as reallocating funding and resources. Paul Bloomberg is the Parks and Recreation Director, and he says they have more than 1,000 acres of public space to maintain, and that includes 24 city parks.
Take Mercy Park, for instance. It is a beautiful park, probably one of our flagship parks now. But the amount of flower beds and areas that we have to maintain, it takes just a whole crew all summer just to maintain that area.
Bloomberg says one thing that will be helpful is the new baseball contract with Parkwood Tournament, LLC.
That's going to allow us to reallocate some of our time that we've spent on athletic facilities over to the Parks Department, simply helping us, trash pickup. And when I say trash pickup, I'm not talking about out of trash cans. It's just trash that's throughout our parks.
Bloomberg says he's not surprised parks made the list.
And I'm not surprised by any comments whatsoever. We know that we need help. They know that we need help. And there's other departments within the city that are in the same boat.
In Joplin, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
That goal also includes areas like streets, sidewalks, and curbs that are in need of improvement. All right, well, it's time to honor today's four-state hero. Sammy Palmer is serving in Turkey as a United States Airman First Class. The airman has been serving since 2006. A native of Crestline, Kansas, we salute you. Sammy Palmer, our four-state hero.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:28. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Some students at Pittsburgh State University get a much-needed financial boost as the university finishes distributions of CARES Act funding. In the summer, PSU applied for the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund that would send schools money to use for emergency grants for students who were displaced due to the pandemic. PSU received a total of more than $2.6 million for students. The funds were distributed in 3 phases. The first phase went to Pell Grant students who automatically qualified to receive the funds. The second and third phases were distributed to students who applied for the funds and were eligible. Full-time students received $800 and part-timers received $400, with leftover funds distributed amongst all eligible students.
We tried to unilaterally share the rest of the funds equally amongst all the students.
Distributions have been completed and around 2,500 students received the funding. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly said Wednesday the state expects to receive its first shipment of a COVID-19 vaccine in a few weeks. She said the vaccine will be distributed in 3 phases, and her plan is in line with recommendations from the CDC. According to Governor Kelly, Kansas is expected to receive 24,000 doses of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine in mid-December, roughly another 49,000 from Moderna shortly after. In all, the state is expecting to have 150,000 doses by the end of December, with more coming in weekly after that. Congress is inching closer to a compromise on a coronavirus stimulus package that could put money in the hands of people who need it most. A bipartisan group of lawmakers is hoping to strike a deal before the Christmas holidays. Deborah Alfarone has the details from Washington.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer are embracing a $900+ billion bipartisan coronavirus package with more funding for small businesses, state and local governments, and unemployment benefits. Support for the plan is a massive concession from Pelosi, who is holding out for a bill twice that size.
This isn't a political game. This impacts on people's real lives and families. It impacts on all of you, all of us. And we need to get help out the door as soon as we can.
But Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is pushing his own much smaller plan. It's similar to legislation he proposed earlier this year, which was a targeted $500 billion bill focused on small businesses, schools, and liability protections. It would extend critical unemployment programs by just 1 month.
The president will sign the McConnell proposal that he put forward yesterday, and we look forward to making progress on that.
While Congress works here, many are not working. Millions of Americans are set to lose their unemployment benefits in weeks, and millions are facing eviction. President-elect Biden says no matter what happens, once he takes office January 20th, he'll pursue a sweeping stimulus package.
Any package passed in this so-called lame duck session be now on January 21st. At best, there's only going to be a down payment on what's going to happen early next year.
Lawmakers are hoping to pass a stimulus bill before the Senate adjourns for its holiday recess on December 18th. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
A new study out of the University of Southern California projects without a concerted effort to slow the spread of the coronavirus, U.S. economy could take a hit of nearly $5 trillion over 2 years. Joplin Health Department says 3 more people have died from COVID-19. The health department says 2 were residents at a long-term care facility. They were a 75-year-old man and a 59-year-old woman. The third was a 77-year-old man. The latest deaths bring the city's total to 65. Jasper County Health Department is reporting 2 more deaths, bringing the county's total to 79. Patients were a man in his 70s and a woman in her 50s. Switching gears to weather.
Ho!
Not a good transition for you, sorry.
No, I had it, and not only that, I had like something poking in my back right there, so I didn't know you were coming to me, so that's why I was like, what is that? I'm good. Weather Almanac showing that we picked up about 0.66 inches if you combine what we got yesterday on top of that 0.27 at Joplin Regional Airport. Pretty much done with the snow in the eastern portion of southwest Missouri that we saw earlier. Still picking up a little bit there in the northwest, but the nice thing is our ground not supporting any accumulation from it. They did get storm reports out here about 1.5 inches, and then they got 1/2 inch in Webster County. So all things considered, we lucked out. We got some much needed precipitation here, as we got anywhere from about 1.25 inches in Miami, 1.5 inches in Grove. We talked about Joplin with the 0.66, and now we're looking at about 1/2 inch in Chanute as well. From the Freeman Health System Sky Camera, the key factor all night and all morning long has been the fact that we've been able to stay just above 32 degrees, pushing up into the high 30s out here in southeast Kansas, 36 in Monette, and let's go 35 right now in Lamar. Final look at the bus stop forecast is we're going to keep the rain on there. We're not going to have to worry about it on the way home. Just try to keep them dry and warm on the way to school because it's going to be a little bit of a chilly Thursday. Nice thing is the trough of the jet stream with that A southwesterly dip right there is going to force the majority of the precipitation east of the Mississippi here by the time we get into the afternoon hours. Give you an idea of what Future Track has in store. Like I said, you see some spotty rain through the afternoon, but then it all dives off. And the cloud cover goes along with it. So that's going to result in two things. Number one, it's going to be really chilly overnight, back down right at, if not below freezing. But here's the nice thing. Let that Friday sun begin to take effect. We're going to cruise into the weekend with seasonable temperatures in the 50s. And then by the time we get into next week, the sun just keeps on coming down. We stay dry, and we're even throwing up some 60s in the middle of next week. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. I figure if it was going to snow today, we might as well have some fun on the KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning Insta poll. You got one of those monoliths that popped up, this time in California. This coming on the heels of the one that was seen in Utah, then disappeared in the desert in Utah. Then one showed up in Romania. Now one in California. We're asking, where in the world did they come from? Sherry Davis, Land of the Lost, 1974. It's the portal pylon for those slee stakes to come through. Twister Dex Miller, I'm with Twister, 2001 Space Odyssey. That's exactly where I went. Chris Ott, aliens coming to get our natural resources. Guy Hansen, he figured out who's responsible. They. Mel McKinney, he goes same with the crop fields. And then Merle Bass, why not ask something pertinent and of importance? Like, do you think the election was tampered with? Is the mainstream media mouthpieces avoiding this question? No! That's what we do! 4 days a week. Actually, you know what? We probably do it 29 out of 30 days a month on the KOAM News Now Facebook page. We wanted to have some fun this morning, Merle. Goodness me. Every morning we go political on this thing. We're having fun today. 60% of you are saying it's a publicity stunt, and I love the 25% who have chimed in and said it's got to be the aliens. Now, Jesse had the unique opportunity to catch up with a American hero when we're talking about Olympians and whatnot. I also happens to be a former politician from Kansas. So, Jesse, what did you talk to Jim Ryan about?
Top high school athlete of all time by ESPN.com. This is Mr. Jim Ryan. You are not only a track and field legend, but you also are a former U.S. congressman. And this summer you received the United States Medal of Freedom from President Trump. And we really, really appreciate you joining us this morning, Mr. Ryan. Thank you.
Happy to be on with you.
I want to ask you about your running career first. What ultimately is your relationship with running now compared to maybe when you were in your 20s and 30s?
Well, first of all, it was something, it wasn't my first choice. I mean, I wanted to play baseball, and when you're cut from the church baseball team, there's not a bright future. When you're cut from the junior high basketball team, the same thing. I even tried out for junior high track and field and couldn't make the team. And then 2 years later, I made my first team as a cross-country runner, and then on my first Olympic team. And I attribute that to a simple prayer as a young boy growing up. Dear God, look at my life. It's not going well, and I would appreciate your help. If you could show up in sports, I'd like that. So it's been a journey that I would never have imagined. I mean, at the end of 2 years of running, I'm the first high school boy to run under 4 minutes. At the end of those 2 years, I was on my first Olympic team, 1964 Tokyo Olympics. And so there are many wonderful and rich experiences that came from all of that. My running now is primarily almost a shuffle. I still like to run, but it's much, much slower. And yet I have all those wonderful experiences to reflect upon.
Well, it's clear that running probably played a major role in your confidence when it came to running for office, right? So, I mean, what ultimately serving as a legislator and serving as a representative of the United States at the Olympics, I mean, what is ultimately what's the common ground there between being a politician and being a professional athlete? Is there a lot?
Well, there are some similarities in the sense that I had a wonderful coach who taught me to establish goals and good discipline along the way. And those were attributes that transferred well from the athletics to serving in Congress. And I'm grateful for that.
What role of social distancing and I mean, just in this world of COVID-19 right now, I mean, how do you think that state athletic associations and conferences should be approaching the keeping kids safe and keeping their families safe while also providing these opportunities that, like in your case, created a lifetime career?
Well, let me just say this, the challenges that come as a result of the pandemic have been interesting and challenging because you've got masks that are worn, you've got social distancing, and for those that want to participate in sports, there are all the challenges of how you do that. And I think what we're slowly seeing is a graduation or gradual changing from doing nothing or allowing the athletes to participate in sports with the recognition that they have to be careful and safe. And I think as those particular guidelines are followed, we're seeing an expansion of that in high school sports.
Well, we will have our full conversation with Grampy on the KOAM morning show page. Just head to KOAMnewsnow.com. Mr. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
The plane is ready to get back in the air. The 737 MAX jet has been globally banned from the skies for 20 months after deadly back-to-back crashes. Now, the company says it's safe for passengers to fly again just in time for holiday travel. But as Jillian Turner reports, it might be a while before Boeing can truly gain back the public's trust.
A big day for Boeing. The aerospace company's 737 MAX jet returned to the skies Wednesday for its first passenger flight in nearly 2 years. American Airlines took journalists on a demonstration flight from Dallas, Texas to Tulsa, Oklahoma, the first time members of the public have been allowed on the planes since March of 2019.
At American Airlines, safety is our #1 priority. There are no exceptions. It is the center of every decision we make and every action that we take.
Regulators worldwide grounded the best-selling jet after 2 fatal crashes in just 5 months killed 346 people, marking the industry's worst crisis in decades and one of the longest aircraft groundings in history. Wednesday's 45-minute trip went off without a hitch, but the biggest challenge is still to come, winning back the public's confidence.
This airplane has gone through more scrutiny than any aircraft that I know of, and rightly so. And it's brought it to a point of which it's extremely safe.
The Federal Aviation Administration lifted its ban on the 737 MAX last month after Boeing redesigned its entire computer software system and introduced new pilot training.
They will have seen a tremendous amount of the systems knowledge that we didn't have before, and actually the hands-on flying part of it all. So that's really what's going to bring the confidence back for the pilots.
American's first commercial flight is slated to take off December 29th. In Washington, Jillian Turner.
Well, for those who are still worried about air travel, the International Air Transport Association is reportedly finalizing a digital COVID-19 passport. The digital passport would contain a traveler's COVID-19 testing and vaccination status, and that info would be verified by labs, airlines, and government agencies during the coronavirus pandemic. The IATA hopes to bring the COVID passport to market in the coming months. The digital passport could help if airlines or governments soon require vaccination before travel and entry. Well, a rapper who stylizes his first name with a $, seeing plenty of them go in his bank account thanks to a fast food endorsement deal. Travis Scott and his deal with McDonald's to promote the Travis Scott meal, bringing the singer, songwriter, and record producer a whopping $20 million. Scott's promotion of the September to October deal reportedly got him a $5 million endorsement check and another $15 million from merchandising. Sales of the meal proved wildly successful for McDonald's, with demand exceeding supply. I want to look up what's in that meal. The coronavirus has some people canceling their plans for the upcoming Olympics. Obviously, Tokyo 2020 announces roughly 18% of tickets for the events, which are supposed to be held next year, are being refunded. The Olympics are scheduled to start on July 23rd. Thomas Bach, the president of the International Olympics Committee, says he hopes an effective vaccine will allow the games to move ahead. We'll try to find out what's in that Travis Scott meal, and we'll be back with more conversation with Jim Ryan when we return.
10 minutes till the top of the hour here from the Skywatch Weather Center as we see a little of our precipitation reverting back to snow there on the far eastern edge of southwest Missouri. Majority of it has remained rain. Come down a pretty good clip right there. Now the ground warm enough that nothing sticks, no travel impacts, and a little bit of scraping northwestern section of our counties, but this, north of Wichita, that's beginning to break up. We don't need to worry about it. They did get multiple storm reports here in Webster County where they got about half an inch of snow. They got an inch and a half on the other side of Wichita. We just kind of lucked out and we'll take it. I mean, I know everybody likes to see a little snow this time of year, but for the most part, we don't want it impacting travel. Got anywhere from about 1.5 inches down in Grove, 1.25 inches in Miami, Joplin sitting at 0.66 inches, Chanute now more than half an inch. So that's some much needed precip. We're not going to complain about that at all. Wet campus there from the Freeman Health System sky camera where we sit at 34 degrees. That's been a key factor all night / morning long as we were able to stay above that freezing mark, and that's why that snow really not going to stick around as the jet stream's going to take all this system coming out of the Gulf and push it east to the Mississippi here by the time we get into Thursday afternoon. There goes the rain and there goes the cloud cover overnight. Now, along with the clouds, that means a decrease in temperatures as we drop down to the freezing point, if not a little bit below it, for Thursday night into Friday morning. But as we head into the weekend, look at all that sunshine, and we're throwing up 60s there by the time we get to the middle of next week. Now, time to check back in with Jesse in part 2 of his interview with former Congressman Jim Ryan.
Well, this morning we are fortunate enough to be joined by a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient, a Kansas native, track and field legend, and former U.S. Congressman, Mr. Jim Ryan. Mr. Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us this morning. Where are you joining us from this morning?
I'm from Washington, D.C.
And I know that, hearing impairment is something that's really important in helping those who are hearing impaired overcome the adversity of it. Can you sort of paint a picture of what your journey with hearing impairment has been like and how you've been able to help others?
Well, at a young age, approximately 5, I lost about half of my hearing as a result of a very, very high fever. It was not really picked up on at that point. I noticed in the classroom difficulty in hearing questions and listening and hearing the teacher. My family medical doctor would say that my hearing loss was fine. It really was normal, but it wasn't until we get into further, better hearing test me, I say, that it was discovered I had a loss. In fact, that's one thing I like to say to people. If you think you have a hearing loss, you probably do. Ask somebody near you, a friend, a relative, perhaps your spouse, and they'll confirm that you've got a loss. And then I would suggest a good quality hearing test. You might go to an audiologist, someone who can give you a good test to determine if you do have a hearing loss. And then, look for a good system. I happen to wear a Phonak Lyric. They're fabulous. They sit on top of the eardrum. They give crystal clear hearing, and it's improved the quality of my life enormously, and it will for those who choose to go this path.
What can we do to be helpful to those who are dealing with it? Because I know sometimes, it can be more than just speaking up. It can be using your hands when you're talking. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of different ways, but which ones have stuck out to you as sort of the best ways to be an advocate?
Well, I think one thing is to be sympathetic to them. If you feel that they've got a hearing loss, encourage them to get some assistance, first of all, and to look again for good testing and try and determine what the loss is. But, maybe get a little closer, speak a little more distinctly. And if you're not getting answers that are the correct answers that you think you should get, probably they have a hearing loss. So just encouraging them to, go into that area and explore what's available, what can help them.
Well, Mr. Ryan, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. When we come back, we're going to be speaking with Mr. Ryan about his career and about what he learned from serving political office and, of course, being a track and field legend. So we'll have more with Jim Ryan a little bit later in this morning when we return.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. As COVID-19 cases and deaths surge, hospitalizations from the virus have hit an all-time high. The CDC is once again asking Americans not to travel for the upcoming holidays. Its director, Dr. Robert Redfield, warned the pandemic death toll in the U.S. could hit 450,000 by February. He said the winter months ahead could be the most difficult in the history of public health. Well, that prediction comes less than 2 weeks before federal health officials say the U.S. should start distributing its first vaccines. Pfizer and Moderna await emergency use authorization for their vaccines. On Wednesday, Britain gave emergency approval to Pfizer's. And former astronaut Mark Kelly is the country's newest senator. Vice President Pence administered the oath to the Arizona Democrat as the state's senior senator. Kelly won a special election to fill the seat held by the late Senator John McCain. Let's check in with Michael with the final look at your forecast.
Check this out. Snow accumulation numbers. It snowed out to the west, snowed out to the east. We just kind of lucked out. We'll tell you, I know the eastern edge there of southwest Missouri. You got something stuck on the ground a little bit, but Could have been a whole lot worse. That's for sure. So let's consider ourselves lucky. Here's a current look at the Skywatch storm track. We're still, like I said, that's why on that eastern edge there, southwest Missouri, you still see picking up a little bit. Be careful in that Stockton area right there. Snow's one thing, but when we get a little bit of that freezing drizzle, that's it. That's another thing. We don't like that. So just be careful out there, slow down, and know that today's going to be chilly. Highs in the low 40s, but after we get rid of this later this morning, we're going to cruise into the weekend with sunshine in the 50s.
Well, Elon Musk is known for his lofty goals, and now he has another one. The SpaceX CEO says he'll put people on Mars by the year 2026. Musk even predicts it could be sooner. The billionaire is making his projection based on science. He says every 26 months, Earth and Mars orbits around the sun sync. Now, Musk has been open about his plans for the red planet. He hopes to create a self-sustaining city there. To make his dreams a reality, SpaceX is developing a special rocket that can launch cargo and as many as 100 people at a time to the moon and Mars.
What's the big deal? Matt Damon already lived there. Thank you for letting us put the good in your morning. Thank you for letting us have some fun this morning. We'll be back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.